All right, guys, it's Monday, a new lesson time for you. We are now going to look at leaders and how we choose those leaders. We're going to look at in a little bit of history and see how some leaders were chosen in different places. And then it's going to be up to you to decide how you would choose your leader. First of all, we've discussed several types of social structures. But how do they choose their leaders? We haven't really talked about that yet. That's the question for today. How do we choose our leaders? We'll be looking at several different groups of people and how they chose their leaders. You will then be asked to determine the best way, in your opinion, to pick a leader. So first of all, our objective here is you'll be presented with several social structures and how they pick their leaders. You'll determine which has the most effective way of choosing a leader. You will then determine a social structure and process in determining a leader for your own country. This part's going to be an ongoing project that we're going to start today as well. Your essential questions for today, just think about this as you're choosing your own leader and choosing your own social structure that you're going to do. And these three questions: why do we have rules? Who makes the rules? And what's the purpose of the rules? Now, let's look at some early groups and how they chose their leaders. Let's look first at the Chumash. In our area, some folks that were here a long time before us were the Chumash. Each village had a Wat who was the leader. Wats were chosen by village elders. We have a lot of groups in the past that were chosen by elders, chosen by people that were thought to be more wise because they'd been around longer and had more experiences. Um, Wats were chosen by village elders, sometimes groups of villages organized under a Pakwat, which was a major chieftain. So sometimes the villages might have banded together and picked one leader over a few of the villages. The next we're going to look at is clan mothers, which in other words are powerful matriarchs, chose Iroquois leaders. If the leaders did not do their job well, they could be removed by the clan mothers. All right, let's take a look at the Vikings. Early Viking leaders or chieftains were military warlords and were chosen by other warriors for their merit or their skill or how well they did their jobs. The Aztec emperors were chosen by a group of four nobles who were related to the previous ruler. Emperors were usually a son or brother of the previous ruler. In Egypt, sometimes the son of the pharaoh's favorite wife was chosen, while other times the sons of a lesser ranked wife were chosen. Many pharaohs married their own sisters, half sisters, and sometimes even their daughters to keep the royal family ruling. Then we have some religious groups. Let's take a look at how some religious groups choose their leaders. For the Pope, which we still have the Pope today, the Pope, the head of the Catholic Church, is selected by an enclave or group of cardinals. Cardinals are high ranking church officials, they're just below the Pope, but they choose the new Pope. The Dalai Lama, or the leader of a Tibetan school of Buddhism, was chosen by monks. These monks had to find the spirit of the former Dalai Lama reincarnated in a child. The monks did this by performing a series of tests. And side note on this, Avatar, The Last Airbender, uses a similar process based on these monks. Okay, now let's look at what we've studied. Um, Now that we've taken a look at some ways that groups chose their leaders, let's look at some of the social structures we've already talked about this year. Let's start by looking at how they chose their leaders or choose their leaders. We are going to focus on four different governments: kingdoms, empires, dynasties, and democracies. We defined these a couple weeks ago, so you have them in your notes. So if you really need to go more in depth, get your notes out and check those out. All right, first of all, kingdoms. Kingdoms are a country or state ruled by a king or queen. We saw how this worked when we studied feudalism. There are other kingdoms that we will study throughout the year and in this unit. Leaders in kingdoms are generally selected by their bloodlines. This means that the eldest son of the king will be the next in line to become the king. That doesn't always happen. If the eldest son gets incapacitated or killed, it would be the next oldest son. And so on and so forth. So We want your thoughts now. What do you think about that? Now that we've studied kingdoms and we're looking at them again, do you think that choosing a leader based off of who their family is a good thing or a bad thing? Also state why you think that. So this doesn't quite have to be a paragraph, but we still want it to be, we don't want your answers to just be yes or no. We need a claim. So, yes, I think it is good to select a leader based off their bloodlines, or I don't think it's good to select a leader based off their bloodlines. And then you'd give me some reasons and some evidence, or reasons. And in this case, examples. Either we're going to use evidence a lot. Sometimes in this case, we might be looking for examples. Empires. There may be more than one way to select a leader in an empire, but once that leader is chosen, they are the sole ruler of that empire. So everything goes through them. They have total control over the entire empire. So is that right? Empires are generally very large. Do you think it's okay to have one person be in charge of a large empire? One person that makes all of the final decisions? Answer that question below. And again, provide a claim and some reasons and evidence. Next, dynasties. A dynasty is another type of family rule. Leaders in a dynasty come from the same family. It is different from a kingdom in the fact that the next in line to rule is not always the firstborn son of the ruler. We have Wu Zetian, who was who I put the picture of here, who was a female empress of a dynasty in China, which we're going to look at again in a couple weeks. So what are your thoughts on this? So again, we have the control of one family. Leaders are chosen because of who they are related to, not on their merit or how good they are at their job. Is this okay? Again, answer the question below. Finally, we have a democracy. There are a couple types of democracies. A republic is a democracy where citizens vote for leaders to represent them, and a direct democracy is where citizens vote directly on all of the issues. In both, however, the main power lies with the people. The citizens control the decisions. So, what's on your mind about this? How do you feel about a democracy? Is it good that the people have the most power? Please write your answer below. Again, claim, reason, evidence. That's it for this part of the lesson. The next part, you are going to start deciding on what type of government or social structure that you want in your own create a country project that we're going to be starting. And then eventually you're going to determine how you will select your leader. Are you going to use a democracy, a kingdom, an empire? It's going to be totally up to you. But we're going to get that started today and see the next assignment for instructions on that. All right, get to work on answering these questions and let us know if you have any questions.